After 4 generations of Sony steadfastly refusing to follow tech trends, it's clear the Xperia 1 series is squarely aimed at the old guard. Phone fans who insist on expandable storage, music lovers who refuse to cut the cord on their headphones, and photographers who think exclusively in focal lengths. In many ways, the Xperia 1V is more of the same. That's not to say progress hasn't been made. This latest flagship sees a handful of significant upgrades that should help it keep pace with the very best smartphones on sale today, including an all-new sensor for the lead camera that promises much better low-light performance. A bigger emphasis on computational photography should also come in handy for when you don't feel like faffing with manual modes.
The rest of the Android world might be head over heels for curved glass, but Sony is sticking with what it does best. The Xperia 1V is a tall, skinny slab of a phone with a flat front and rear, angular sides, and effortlessly minimal styling. Naturally, it comes in black, just as every previous model has, but this time khaki green and platinum silver are also on the table. On first glance, it seems identical to last year's model, but look closer and you'll spot grooved lines on all 4 sides which add extra grip. The microdot textured rear should also help.
Prevent accidental slips. It's well protected should you drop it, with Gorilla Glass Victus 2 up front and IP65/IP68 dust and water resistance. But the narrow 21:9 aspect ratio means it's much easier to keep hold of than most big screen rivals. Almost all of the Sony staples return, including a tool-free SIM tray that also supports microSD expandable storage, a 3.5mm headphone port, and a physical camera shutter button. The power button still doubles as a fingerprint sensor and is just as quick to recognize your digits. Given how slim the phone is, lefties should find it just as easy to reach as right-handers. Pour one out for the notification LED though, which no longer makes the grade.
A trio of lenses once again take pride of place on the back of the Xperia 1V. A 24mm wide-angle, 16mm ultra-wide, and 85-125mm periscope telephoto. They're as speedy as we've come to expect from Sony's phones, each managing 20 FPS burst shooting and all capable of 4K video recording at 120 fps. The focus remains on manual shooting, with separate apps for photos and videos that each have an abundance of controls and settings for pro snappers to tweak. Cinema Pro continues to be the domain of serious filmmakers, while Video Pro and Photo Pro have simpler layouts that don't overwhelm you with options until you go searching for them. The UI even works in portrait now, which suits how lots of people use their phones.
This time around, though, Sony is bringing an all-new sensor for the main camera. X-More-T for mobile has a 52 MP total pixel count, with 48 MP being used for stills, which then get pixel binned down to 12 MP, at 1:1. 35 in, it's not as large as the IMX 989 in sensor it developed in partnership with Xiaomi. But the firm still reckons low-light performance is almost 3 times as good as the outgoing Xperia 1 IV, which hardly put in a poor showing. An auto night mode and more computational photography are also very welcome additions for those that prefer point-and-shoot simplicity to manual shooting modes.
The Xperia 1 series has never been short on power, and this 5th gen model is no different. It's packing a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 CPU and 12 GB of RAM, which is essentially overkill for running most apps. The Android home screen was always smooth and responsive. Apps opened pretty much instantly. It powered through demanding tasks and shrugged off split-screen multitasking. More importantly, there are no heat concerns. Last year's Xperia 1 IV could only manage 5 minutes of 4K HDR video recording before throwing a temperature warning and throttling performance. There's none of that here. Even after a morning split between a marathon Genshin Impact session and shooting a lot of 20 FPS burst photos, performance remained consistent.
Gaming in general is as polished as you'd expect from a flagship phone, with most titles defaulting to their highest settings and managing well in excess of 60 FPS when supporting unlocked frame rates. Sony's Game Enhancer overlay also makes a return with performance monitoring and live streaming straight to YouTube. It now lets you snap screenshots by pressing the phone's physical camera shutter button, which is a neat addition. Sony's Xperia UI remains as slick as ever, laying useful extras on top of the standard Android interface like a multi-window shortcut for quickly launching pairs of apps in split-screen mode. Aside from a few Sony-made apps, which are mostly dedicated to the cameras, the software selection is largely Google's own. There's no pre-installed bloat, although we got a lot more use from the Bravia Core movie streaming service than we did the Music Pro audio recorder, which beams your sounds into the cloud for off-device processing and noise reduction.